Well, welcome everybody. Today we have Miss Aliyah here. She is a transformational life, mental, and emotional eating coach, specifically for the plus size woman. And today she's going to be sharing a topic about creating a healthy family. Like, I don't know about you, but this time of year really draws up all kinds of stuff when it comes to family. Yeah. Is there a word? Family drama, family, whatever, like all the expectation and the pressure that comes with this season. I am so excited to dive into this topic with Aliyah today, because I think the more tools that we can have or support or understanding of how we can approach this season in every other day of our lives, on how to really create a healthy environment in our household so that we can have a more nurturing and loving, supportive family unit. And I'm always been a huge believer that us women, we're the pillars of our home. And if we're cracked and broken, our whole household is in shambles. So ladies, just take that in cue and come and listen to what Aliyah has to say today, because she's going to give you some tools and maybe some duct tape for those pillars so that we can stand a little stronger this season, and get through all the stresses of what's going to be coming down the pipe over the next number of weeks. So Aliyah, tell the audience, you did come and share your story, which was a powerful story. It rocked my world for about 4 or 5 days. I couldn't get your story out of my head. And so if you haven't seen her story yet, go to the Your Story Matters section and make sure you watch her story, because it will rock your world. Like, she's gone through a lot of stuff. And for her to be able to sit here today with this glowing smile and to be doing the work that she's doing to make an impact in women's lives is just a huge example of how you do not need to let your past define you, that you are in the driver's seat of where you want your life to go. And Aliyah has definitely made that possible in her own life, where she has made some decisions to take this approach and start serving and giving back to the community that she is doing such an amazing job in. So Aliyah, tell the Beautiful You community who you are, who you serve, and what is your most favorite thing that you do within your business and coaching practice.
Okay, so my name is Aliyah, and I'm actually based in Houston, Texas, and I serve plus size women with emotional eating issues, but I tend to go deeper than just nutrition or the psychology of eating. So I go into childhood trauma, I go into toxic families, sexual abuse, and I also offer like a holistic wellness plan addressing mind, body, soul, nutrition, movement, all of that. So that's what I do.
Love it.
And I'm the founder of Curvaceous Fit and Fabulous, because all of us women, not just the plus size, but all of us could be curvaceous, fit, and fabulous.
I got me some curves.
Got you some curves. Look at you. You're beautiful, Stacy.
Thank you, honey. So are you.
Thank you. So that's what I do. And you said my hobbies, or what was the next question? I'm sorry.
What's your favorite thing that you do, in your coaching practice? Like, what is one of the things that light you up the most when you hit those days?
What I like to do, and maybe this sounds not too bad, is to point out people's BS, because a lot of people are full of excuses and can be full of BS. And I point it out, and I point out their triggers. That's my favorite thing, because once you realize that, they're like, okay, they get mad at me. I'm not gonna lie. They do get mad at it. But then they're like, oh, but you're right. Yeah, you are right. Yeah, I am. I do. I am in my head all the time. I'm like, exactly. We got to get out of that.
That's right.
Yeah.
So good. So good. and yes, we have to have people like you to call out our BS, because I would be allergic to exercise for the rest of my life if someone didn't tell me to get over myself. So I get it. I totally get it. That's
yeah.
awesome.
So, there's actually a small portion of the population that actually has exercise intolerance. I think it's 1 or 2% of the population.
Oh, really?
So it's
I should jump on that boat. I was telling a coach earlier today, I'm like, yeah, I'm allergic to sweat. Like, I literally just, because I have so much, like you get it. You have curly hair. So to wash your hair, it's a chore. As I spat all over myself. So it's a chore. And my hair's long, but ever since I got these highlights, when I wash it, it just gets like crazy knotty. And it's so hard to, like, it takes me a good 20 minutes to brush my hair. I'm like, I ain't got no time for that. I'm like, if I sweat, that means I have to shower, and I ain't got no time for that. So,
I don't blame you.
but
It's hard.
I have to get over myself. So I just do my business online, and you can't smell me. So thank God for that.
Oh my God, I gotta stop laughing. Okay, let me stop laughing. Okay.
Laughing's good. So
Yeah, but I can laugh too much. I can laugh for the next 30 minutes because that was funny.
Oh, you're so cute. I love you.
Love you too.
Okay, so Aliyah, tell us, how can we create a healthier family dynamic?
Well, I think number one is to realize what kind of dysfunctional family you grew up in. There's actually 5 types of dysfunctional families. There's actually 5, and people can have more than one type of dysfunctional family. And I'm going to get into that. So I can go through like kind of the definitions and examples of them. And then what I can do is give y'all tips on how to actually find a healthy family. Because I don't know if y'all know, Stacey is my sister. I don't care if she's in Canada. That's my sister from another mister.
Right.
Yes. And the cool thing about like creating your own family is it's unlimited. It's worldwide. You can have as many brothers and sisters as you want.
That's right.
So cool. As many moms as you want, as many dads, grandparents, man, uncles, cousins. It's cool.
That's right.
So yeah, I guess I could start off with that, like the 5 types of dysfunctional families.
Absolutely.
Well, let me go.
I'm curious.
That. Yeah.
I wonder
So,
where my family dynamic sits.
Yeah, it could be a combination as well. The family dynamic. So yeah, the reason why I actually wanted to talk about this is because, man, I was like doing the research for this, and it's like almost 80% of the population worldwide grew up in a dysfunctional family. That's a lot of people. I was like, wow. So like the minority.
I like to meet those 20% and ask them, are you lying?
Right?
Because I've even talked to people that have grown up in the church, and they still, like, because their parents are ministers or pastors or whatever, and their parents would be married to the ministry, and then the kids feel that abandonment or that rejection, that they're not worthy enough for their parents' attention because their parents are giving everything to the ministry. So you might look at a family like that and be like, oh, they got it all together. But then there's still kids that rebel, and still kids that feel rejected because of that dynamic. So wow. I'm totally taking away from you. I'm sorry to intercede already. You could just shut me up.
That's actually interesting, because see, I didn't know that. I would think that, man, that's the perfect family right there. Like, I want to be in that family, but yeah, wow, there's so much abandonment. That's sad.
It is. And it doesn't happen to all they call them PT kids or PK kids, or, you know, pastors' kids. It doesn't happen to all of them by all means, because there's some really great, like, family first households, but some of them do get lost in the mix because their parents are married to the ministry. So that makes it tough.
Well, thank you for sharing that, because see, now I'm going to start like having a little more compassion for them, because I just didn't know that. That's interesting.
Oh, there's always something. And that's why I say, when there's 20% of the society that hasn't grown up with dysfunction, I have to ask, like, are you being truthful? Because I think we all have some form of dysfunction to some degree, and it might not be jacked full of trauma and abuse, but there might be other things where that spirit of rejection or abandonment comes in, which is just as heavy as some of the other things that people are experiencing. So
wow. See, Stacey, you're teaching me. See, I'll give this presentation, but look at her dropping gems.
Iron sharpens iron, baby. That's what we're here to do.
That's awesome. Oh, thank you for sharing that, because wow. See, now I got to do some more research, because if it is supposedly 20%, is that really true?
Yeah, it's a good question though, right?
Yeah, now I gotta look into that.
But
Thank you.
still, even 80%, if that is just like the actual stat, like I hate to hijack your information, but that is still a ton of people that have gone through some form of trauma or dysfunction. So let's go into the different levels or the different areas of that dysfunction.
Okay, great. So, like I mentioned earlier, there's 5 types of dysfunctional families. So, and you can have more than one type, as I'll explain later. So, the first type is the substance abuse family. So, it's kind of like it sounds. One or more of your parents are addicted to a substance, and the parent is super unreliable. And for the children who grow up in this, it can cause some trust issues like extreme anger, PTSD, anxiety, and depression. So
Mm.
it's really sad. So that's the substance abuse family. So that's the first type. The second type of family, number 2, is the conflict driven family. So basically, like it sounds, is like these families are like picking these like fights with each other and pressing each other's buttons and like pissing each other off. And like, so children who grew up in these types of families have major stress. They have a hard time trusting people, developing like attachments. They have a really hard time in like romantic relationships because they can't really attach to the other person. So stress disorders, like they have depression, anxiety, psychosis, anger issues, they have memory issues, and obsessive compulsive disorder. So that's the conflict driven family.
Check and check.
Yes, right? That could probably be like almost every family, honestly. Well, number 3 is the violent family. So it could be sexual abuse, it could be domestic violence. And it's really sad when these like with these dysfunctional families, it can literally develop like the child's brain. Because when the child is growing and they see that dysfunction, it can hinder their development. So I know it's terrible. So the violent family, so the children in these types of family normally don't have a lot of empathy. They feel socially isolated. They have a fear of abandonment, have a lot of sadness, depression, shame, and fear of the future. So that's the third type of family. Number four is the authoritarian family. So basically, oh my God, this is interesting because that's kind of like the pastor family that you told me about earlier, how they're married to like the church, but they don't really pay attention to the kids. So with these types of families, so they make so many demands. They expect a lot out of you, but they don't give you a lot of positive feedback, if any. So you're really not allowed to grow. You're not allowed to learn from your mistakes. And anything you do, like even if it's like a minor thing, is associated with like a severe punishment. So I know it's terrible. So children in these families have really low self-esteem. They're super shy or extremely aggressive. So that's number 4. Number 5, last but not least, is the emotionally detached family. So basically, these parents they're basically emotionally unavailable, and they teach their children to repress their emotions. Children are not allowed to express their emotions, and this can affect the child's self-esteem and feelings of worthiness, their self-love. So unfortunately with this one, it can lead to so many failed relationships. So those are the 5 types of families. And with people, it doesn't have to be like one particular type of family. It can literally be a combination.
I'm 5 for 5.
Are you really all 5?
Yep. So their substance abuse, I was born an addict. My parents were alcoholics, drug addicts. Growing up as a kid, they passed weed around like the joints, and you'd be as a 8-year-old passing the joint to the next person in line. I was 9. My mom smoked a joint with me at the kitchen table at 3 o'clock in the morning. So there's lots of substance abuse. The conflict driven, there was always fights. I don't know how many wind spoons I had broken over my head. All kinds of conflict. My mom would lots of abuse, the violent family, the conflict, the gaslighting, all of that stuff happened growing up. You didn't know what to say, your facial expressions, you had to be very cautious even with your facial expressions growing up, because you get a backhand, you wouldn't even know where it came from because you just snarled your nose a little bit and you didn't even realize that you did it. The authoritarian, absolutely, where it was just do as I say, not as I do. Like you weren't allowed to if I was a minute late or even 5 minutes early, I'd still be grounded because they'd always have an agenda attached to it. Emotionally detached. Well, my mom was an addict. So she'd sleep all day and then she'd expect me to clean the house and take care of the kids and cook dinner. And then when my stepdad would walk through the front door and sit down at the kitchen table and he'd be like, oh, dinner's so good. The house looks so great. And my mom would take the credit for it all, even though I did it all. And she crawled out of bed 20 minutes before he walked in the door. So those are the things that happened growing up, just a skiff of the surface. But yeah, 5 for 5. And I resonate with a lot of the having a hard time with relationships and the trust issues and the not knowing myself or who I am. Like when you're saying all this stuff, I'm like, yeah, I could be a hot mess. I must be a miracle child, because there's absolutely no way that I could be where I am and solid and secure in who I am without some miracle divine sprinkling in my life. Because when I look back, even in my, before I actually went through all my healing, I was not a very nice person. I would be angry, or I would want to be invisible, shy, retracted in the corners. Do not look at me, like always scared of being triggering somebody. Fear of rejection and abandonment is still something that I wrestle with. But I'm becoming more secure and like, but being single wouldn't be such a bad thing. Some days, right? I love my husband, don't get me wrong, but like there's just some days where the expectations are just like, yeah, maybe I could tap out.
I understand it's hard.
Yeah, relationships are hard, but we do make a great team. So I would never do anything to sabotage that. But definitely the first we've been married 18 years. So I would say the first 15 years of our marriage has been growth and just learning each other and working through insecurities. Like my husband grew up, his parents split up when he was 8. His dad cheated on his mom, and then his mom's dad got murdered. And so that put her into a mental institution for a period of time. And my husband was staying with his dad, who was married to another woman that had no interest of my husband whatsoever, didn't want him around at all, and made it quite clear. So he had that. And then when his mom came back out, so much dysfunction, right? Like you just look at it and you can see somebody where they are today. Like somebody can look at me today and they can stereotype me all they want, but I've been through it. Like I get it, right? Even though I can put a smile on my face and I can be an exhorter and really help lift other women up, I can do that because I've been there. I know what it's like to be heavy burdened with all that junk. So
yeah. Wow. And when someone when someone looks at you, I know with a lot of people, they're like, well, she doesn't know. She's Caucasian. She's blonde. Like she looks perfect. She's a coach. She grew up in a perfect family, but looks are deceiving.
He's so deceiving, right? Yeah, no, there would be absolutely. And that's where I get a little bit aggravated when people say like, oh, you got a handout because you're Caucasian or you grew up where you grew up. I'm like, you have no idea. Like I might have had it worse than some other people out there that are, there's always somebody that has a worse story than you, right? And so I used to always say that to myself, even growing up. I'm like, people would because things would come out of me throughout my healing journey. And this one lady, I remember her looking at me, she's like, your life sounds like a horror movie. I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. I did not mean to, because sometimes it just comes out of me because I'm healed from it. It doesn't hurt anymore, but I need to bring that awareness and be like, hey, like you can't stereotype me or just put me in this like oh, your life's so perfect box. I have had to fight tooth and nail to get to where I am, in knowing who I am and find those levels of healing, because it doesn't happen overnight. It takes hard work, resilience, and consistency. Like, you just can't give up on yourself, right? So you got to fight it through. You got to fight. And there's only one way through, is through. Like, you can't run from it. You can't hide from it. We have to face it. We have to get into the mud again and relive some of those moments so that we can heal from it. Right. Which you've had to do as well. Like, so yeah.
I have a question for you then.
Okay.
Yes. So I know you went through a lot in your life. Like, what was the very first step for you to heal, to start healing?
Falling to my knees, baby, and throw my hands up to the king. Be like, all right, you just need to take control, because if I keep on my path, I'm going to screw everything up. And I just had to make that decision in my heart that I was going to live for him, for Christ, and bring him into my life. And so that's when the work started to happen. He started healing me, started giving me the strength and the ability to forgive, which is some of the hardest things to do, especially with trauma and abuse and neglect and all of that. It's so hard. But by the grace of God, he's been able to give me the strength to do that. There's some really great stories that I will be bringing to the Beautiful You app, just to kind of share that forgiveness journey, because it's a story all in itself, but it is. And just coming to realization as to, like, that my life is not my own, right? And I really wrestled, because when you come into this walk with Christ, you hear these things all the time. And it's even in the word that God knows the beginning and the middle and the end of our lives. And there was a part in my beginning journey of my healing was just like, well, God, if you know the beginning and the middle and the end of my lives, and you said that you love me, why did you put me with that family? And I got stuck there for a long time, because I'm like, you tell me, and everybody in the church tells you that God loves you, you're his apple of his eye, and he's written your name in the palm of his hand. And I'm like, yeah, he must not love me that much, like, right? And I wrestled with that for a long time. And then one day I was in my prayer closet, and God's like, and I was asking him that same question all over again, because I'm relentless like that. I'm like a dog with a bone, just don't get lit up like, until you give me an answer. And he's like, well, Stacy, if not you, then who? Like, because he put me in that family to be a lighthouse, to be some, because even throughout the whole entire journey, when I look back, I see God's hand protecting me from things that could have been a heck of a lot worse. And so, yes, I experienced some trauma, some things, but I know that his hand was there guiding me and protecting me and shadowing me, to be able to bring me to the place that I am today. And I had to go through all of that so that I could have the understanding and compassion in my heart to be able to reach out and meet women where they're at. Because so many, 80% of us have gone through some form of junk, right? So, and we won't just listen to anybody. If you haven't walked a mile in my shoes, you ain't going to get it, right? Just like I'm not going to get it if losing a husband. I've lost family members, but I don't understand divorce. I don't understand the pain that would come from something like that. And God forbid, I don't ever want to deal with it. I don't want to learn that lesson.
You've had enough lessons, Stacy.
But at the same time, there's women that are in that space. And so I can relate to some degree, and to be able to bring a heart. And that, I'm just going off on a tangent now. I think did I answer your question?
You actually did answer my question. And actually, like, I'm not a religious person, but I find Christ's story like so fascinating. Like, I ask my Christian friends who are like in the church, I think the husband's a pastor, like I always ask about like Christ. And it's really amazing that, what did he say? Like, he said, if your enemy like slaps one cheek, give them the other cheek to slap, or something like that, right?
Yeah, turn the other cheek.
Yes,
And
yes.
it, And it's not so much that you're like, okay, just beat the crap out of me already. It really is just to be the humbled spirit, because people will come at us. People will just attack people because hurting people hurt people. That's
Hmm.
just, it's a given. It's out there. Everybody knows that, right? But if someone's slapping you or reaching out and hurting you in some way, it's not so much the retaliation. Like, to have Christ's spirit in you, retaliating isn't going to serve that issue well. It never does.
Hmm.
But having the idea of like turn the other cheek, it's not so much like, hey, give it to me again. It's coming at it with a different viewpoint and being like, all right, what's really going on with you for you to be coming at me like that? Right. And digging into that pain and helping them find that healing and that discovery as to why they're lashing out. And so it goes much deeper. God's word isn't always just like
Hmm.
that. It's living, and it goes deep, and everybody's interpretation of it will be completely different. Right. So it's your own personal relationship with him, and he will show you what he wants you to know and hear when we spend time with him. So yeah.
I love that. No, thank you for sharing that. I love that. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
That is really beautiful. I love that. So that was your first basically step, is just to realize like God, Christ can heal, and just to get on your knees and you just prayed.
Yeah, I didn't even know he could heal. I didn't know what the potential of that was. I was just making a hot mess in my life. So like I could not figure it out. And I was just at a breaking moment. My older brother was living with me, and he was an addict, and I didn't know he was an addict, but he got into narcotics after my mom had passed. And
Mhm.
he was living in his car because he had lost his family because he went off the deep end. And when I asked him to come and stay with me, I didn't realize that he was so deep in the trenches of his addiction. And so he was doing things that were completely inappropriate, and I had to kick him out. And it was devastating to me because my mom always said, like, we only have each other, we have to stick together. And it always just ranted in my brain on replay, we only have each other, we have to stick together. And I'm kicking him out. I'm closing that door. I do not want him in my life. I didn't talk to him for 14 years. But when that happened, I was just like, I don't know what to do anymore. Like, I was a single mom, and I was making some bad choices with relationships, and then I had this addict in my house who I loved, but I couldn't have him there. And so it was just so hard um to make how do I make the choice? I just wanted, I selfishly, I just didn't want to be the one making the decisions anymore. I'm like, okay, God, take the wheel. Like, you drive the bus, I'll get in the back seat and close my eyes and just show up whenever you decide to stop. Right. I wanted to not take the responsibility of my own actions. I suppose that's why I fell to my knees, but God's plan was so much bigger than that. He just, all right, I could work with a humbled heart, Stacy. Let's get to work.
And I'm
So
sure that was stages too, because like you said, you went through a period where you were angry, like, why did I grow up in this like stupid family? Like, do you even love me? Like you say
mhm.
you love me. So I'm sure it's very cyclical, like up and down, right?
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah.
And it's hard because even people in the church will let us down, right? So we typically, because people are people,
Hmm.
and the church is made up of people, and we're all a broken people, because if we weren't broken people, we wouldn't need Christ. Right? Like, we're
That's true.
all broken. And it doesn't matter what level we're at or how spiritual we are. Like, it's not about that. It's really your heart and your relationship with him. And my relationship with you is going to be different than your relationship with your son. Right. And it's the same concept with our relationship with Christ. It's going to be different for me than it is for you, because he knows you from the inside out, and he knows how to reach all those places that we don't even know we need to work on yet. Right? So he'll pull that out of us and give us the strength to walk through it. So
Amen. I love that. Yeah,
yeah.
I love that. And yeah, Christ can literally like his messages can literally like go through all like belief systems and all religions. Like, I really love that.
Yeah, he is a constant.
He is. He really is. Like,
Yeah.
he's so flexible. It's so cool. I know it sounds terrible I'm saying that, but
No, he's a
yeah.
gentleman, and a lot of people look at, well, because the church has really hurt people, right? You know, there's this saying like, "Oh, I'm gonna tie you to a chair and beat you with the Bible." Well, that's not God, you know. It's not. That's the religious leaders. Like, so Jesus will knock. He'll keep knocking, but he ain't gonna barge into your house. He's gonna wait for the invitation. And so he's a gentleman. He ain't gonna just push himself into your life. You have to invite him in. And so, and once that happens, once you bring that an invitation in, and he's not gonna be like, "All right, here's my laundry list, Stacy. Go get to work." He's gonna be like, "Have you ever thought of this?" Or he'll give you like a little glimpse of something. I know with my forgiveness journey, he prepped me for that I had to go and forgive my stepdad for all his garbage. And I was wrestling for months. Like, God had planted the seed in my heart that I had to go do this. And I had all kinds of conversations wrapping up in my head. Oh, well, just like I said, God ain't gonna come with a laundry list. Well, us humans, we come with a laundry list. So I was like, okay, so I'll go have a conversation and be like, okay, you did this, Dad, you did that, and you messed me up here, and you messed me up there, and you really let me down there, and da 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 da, like, and had all these things that I wanted to confront him with. It was never going to turn out well, and God knew that. And then it took months of him preparing my heart for that conversation. And the day that he's like, okay, today's the day. I'm like, oh, great. So you're going to tell me what we're going to go have a conversation about? Because everything that I've got coming up in my head ain't going to go down well. And so he's like, you're going to go and ask for forgiveness. I'm like, why am I asking for forgiveness? I didn't do anything wrong. I was the victim. And he's like, no, you got bitterness in your heart and you need to let it go, because that bitterness will dry your bones up and you will rot to death. And I'll never be able to step into a healthy relationship. I'll never be able to dig in deeper to any other area of my life until I cut that off. And so I was like, oh, all right, I'll go and ask for forgiveness for my bitterness, but you're going to have to do the talking, because there ain't no bone in my body that's got the strength to do that. And he's like, okay. So I took my dad out for dinner and we sat at the kitchen table or at the dining room table, at a restaurant table. Let's be real. I don't even know where I was headed. And the bill came to the table. He finished his beer. He wanted to go outside for a smoke. And I'm like, God, like, if you ain't going to show up and have this conversation, I ain't coming back. Like, this was the most awkward lunch I've ever been at, because it was just like quiet and like surface kind of, those shallow conversations. And I'm like, if you don't do it now, God, I ain't coming back. And so my mouth opened and I said, you know why I invited you here for lunch, Dad? And he's like, no. And I said, well, I wanted to ask for forgiveness. And he's like, you know me, let bygones be bygones. Ooh, my flesh was like wanting to pop his eyeballs out of his head, because I'm like, bygones be bygones. Like, what did I do? Like, I had all these things running through my head and it was in mock mode, because my mouth opened again and said, no, I have bitterness in my heart and I need you to forgive me for it. And I don't know, there was a few other things that came out of my mouth. I don't even know what they were, but the Spirit of the Lord was definitely there, because the man who was a hard ass that has never showed weakness, especially in public, sat back and turned into a snot-nosed blubbering mess and started apologizing to me profusely. I sat back and I was like, what just happened? Like, if that ain't the power of God, real in form, I cannot deny my walk with him, not one iota after that incident, because there's no way. That man was hard shell. And for me to come with a humbled heart like that was the only way to be able to break down that door of whatever the heck had him locked up there. But he was apologizing for what happened with my mom, and that he loved her, and he apologized to the way he was to me as a kid, and all the things. And I was completely blown away. I never seen him like a puddle of clay, just muddled right there in front of me. It was so heart-wrenching, but so it just lifted such a weight off my chest that is what I needed to have that level of healing towards that man. Because years later, God put me in a position to go and serve him and to help him when he got really sick. And so I could not have done that if I didn't have that level of healing. And God knew that. He knew what the years ahead had planned for that relationship. And he knew that I was the only one in the family that could go and support him in that. Because none of like his actual biological kids couldn't do it. Like, so yeah, God knows. He knows all the things. The beginning, the middle, and the end.
Wow, that's fascinating.
I wasn't going to get into
Wow.
that story, but it just happened. Sorry.
No, that's good, because actually, yeah, one of my points was actually forgiveness. So I'm glad you talked about that.
Yeah. So bring the power of forgiveness, and share with the community. I know my story will highlight some of that, but there's so much power in forgiveness. So let's talk about that.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Wow. And that's the thing. It's really tough to forgive. Like, you
Oh,
had the most difficult time forgiving.
it is so hard. So
It
hard.
is real hard. Yeah. But like, once you do, it's like a big weight has just been released. Like, I'm sure you
Yeah.
felt lighter after that
So
happened.
much. Yeah, 50 pounds at the door, gone. But literally it, for some women, it's just like they feel, people in general, they feel that if they forgive, they're letting that person free, and they're not.
Mhm.
They're setting themselves free. There's a really great saying, and I'm not sure if you've heard it. You probably have, because it's been around for quite some time. It's like, unforgiveness is like drinking acid and expecting the other person to die. We only hurt ourselves when we hang on to it and we don't let it go. So
I love that. Yes, I've heard that saying. It is very powerful.
it is. It's a good reminder.
It is a good reminder. Yes. Yeah. I had to also forgive my family as well. And that was tough, man. That took, oh my goodness, that was taking me years to forgive them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was tough, to forgive for the neglect and the abuse and like the shamming. And yeah, it was tough, and even up until this day, I think I mentioned last time, like, I don't talk to my siblings. Like, I forgive them, I love them, but they haven't let go of whatever they're angry at me about, which I don't even know why they're angry at me. Like, I've tried to have that conversation with them, but it just hasn't happened yet. And
Yeah.
I mean, I'm hopeful like you, like one day maybe God will intervene some way, somehow, and maybe they'll reach out to me and, want to have dinner or coffee or something.
Yeah. Well, my brother and I, our relationship has been restored, and we didn't speak to each other for 14 years.
Wow, that's
So
amazing.
God can do miraculous things. And my brother is a recovering addict, and he's now saved. So like, if it just, so much goodness. Like, when we just give it to him, we just take the load off of ourselves. It's like, I don't really want to deal with this guy. It's yours. And then he's like, but Stacy, like, you got to put in some work too. Okay. But yes, forgiveness is such a powerful tool to have in our tool belt. And I know it's not easy, but being able to talk it out, and it is sometimes it's a daily decision, because especially if there's certain individuals that are in your life consistently hurting you, or saying things that are constantly scratching that scab off, per se. It is so hard. But sometimes, so that's where that daily decision process has to come into place. We're like, no, that's your junk. You might have scratched off my scab, but that's your junk. I release you. I forgive you. And sometimes you might say, I forgive you, but you're biting your tongue and you're like, I really don't, right? Like, so it's a journey, and it's okay to go through all of the levels, right? Because it takes time to really come to peace with that decision. And you'll know when you've hit that spot is when you can think about those situations that have hurt you, and you can share those stories and they don't hurt you anymore. They don't cause that emotion, that locking in your throat, or the belly turns, or whatever, however it manifests in your body, because all of that stuff will manifest in our body. And but you'll know when you're healed from it, when you can share it, and it doesn't hurt anymore. So you'll never forget
I
it.
love that.
You can't forgive and forget. You'll never forget, but you can let it go so it doesn't hurt you anymore.
I love that. I absolutely love that. I guess part of how I started to forgive is me personally. I love to write. I journal, and I just journal everything I'm feeling. Like, I mean, it's just me and the paper and God watching. That's it. Just write.
Right. Yeah. And you can get so colorful in your journal. So journaling, we had a little bit of a blip. So we are just going to come right back into journaling and how that can transform your healing journey. So how did that do for you?
Wow. I think because therapy it just didn't work for me at the time, and eventually I'm going to seek out therapy again. It was literally like my therapist. You were able to write what you want, how you wanted it. You could curse as much as you want to. You could just, I mean, you can say anything. And it is so freeing. Once you let all of that out, you're just like, ah, it just feels so good.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And there's a lot of power in that, especially if you're walking through understanding relationships, healing from some of those past traumatic events, being able to kind of write the story out, you know, like you said, you can curse. Like some of my journals, like I probably wrote profanity that I didn't even know how to spell. Like God help my kids when they ever go back and read my journals when I'm dead, because they're going to be like, what was she saying? These tear splatters all over your pages. Like, but it can be an ugly mess. There's no rhyme or reason. You don't have to have your grammar all perfect. Scribble, cry, scratch, do whatever you need to do to get the emotions out. And it is a great therapy tool by all means. And it doesn't cost you a ton of money.
It really doesn't. Yeah. Find a journal is cheap, less than $5.
Yeah.
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 And I guess a word of advice I want to give is, let's say someone is afraid someone's going to read it. Because you never know. They might have like controlling husbands or whatever the situation may be. They can burn it right afterwards. You can just rip it up and throw it away. I don't know, like here, I don't know if y'all had this in Canada, like a safe deposit box at the bank. If you want to do that, like lock up your journal and like, a safe deposit box, you can do that too if they're worried about being exposed.
Yeah, absolutely. And burning is always fun, especially with, you can throw a pair of your, pair of their socks in there too, like just to be like, burn their feet, like whatever. Like it's so therapeutic that just to get it out on paper, you don't even have to ever come back to revisit it. Just getting it out brings levels of healing. It helped me understand my mom's journey, that I didn't understand why she didn't love me until I started journaling. And I realized that she loved me with the only way she knew how to love me. So she gave me everything that she possibly could, because she had her own trauma, her own stuff. I couldn't expect anything else from her when she had an empty tank. So I would never have known that until I had done some self-exploring, and then lashing out, doing all my all my stuff in the journal, and then coming to those revelations, right? So
That's beautiful, Stacey.
great tool.
It is. It's an amazing tool. Like, people underestimate how like amazing it is, especially if you cannot afford like a therapist or a coach. I mean, that's a great tool.
Yeah, absolutely.
And also like I'm into like self-help books.
Mm-hmm.
So the one that I'm actually going to start reading is I don't know, have you heard of the holistic psychologist?
No, tell me more.
Dr. Nicole LaPera, that is her name. And it's really cool. Like the way she does things is not just psychology or psychiatry, but literally she incorporates like the mind, body, soul, and spirituality into her practice. Like I've
Awesome.
never heard a psychologist do that, but that's fascinating.
That is a good, well-rounded psychologist for sure. So that's
Yes,
great.
yes. And she does have a program that opens up a few times a year for self-healing. It's I think in the US it's like $26. I don't know, you can translate that into your currency. But she
Yeah.
opens it up like I think 3 or 4 times a year, and it's awesome. Like I was in it for a little bit. I had to get out because I just didn't have the time. But I plan to get in it once it opens up again. And yes, she gives you tools on like meditation and like the journaling, like we mentioned earlier. She'll give you like books to read. She has lives once a week going through like the material and going more in depth. Like,
That's
yes.
awesome.
Yes, so I think her website is theholisticspsychologist.com. On Instagram, she's the holistic psychologist. So if you follow her and you go to her email list, like you can, you know, wait till she opens up the program and do that.
Yeah.
She also has a book, like which I'm actually gonna start reading. It is called, I'm gonna get that for y'all in just a moment. Um, How to Do the Work
Ooh.
by Dr. Nicole LaPera, aka the holistic psychologist. She is amazing. Like she is amazing. Follow her on Instagram. I wish I was working for her. Like I love her. I just love her to death.
Aw, I'll have to look
Yes.
her up for sure.
You'll love her. Like she talks a lot about the trauma and like, the family and dysfunction and it's like the stuff we're talking about. It's amazing. Like
So
she's
good.
awesome. Yeah, she's awesome. And like actually she had this post recently, not that well, about a month or two ago. So basically she's in a throuple, which is like a 3-person couple, which
Oh,
again, that's not my thing, but
not my
it works
thing.
for it works for
I have
some
hard
people.
enough time to keeping my husband happy, never mind anybody else.
Yeah, it's a lot to have 2 people to keep up with. That's a lot, but it works for her. It's beautiful. It works for her. And man, she said she got so much backlash from that, and like she lost like what 25,000 followers because of
Wow,
that post. That's insane.
interesting. But you know what? I think we need to be real. And so for her to step out and just be transparent with her community, that shows a lot of character. Because you're not hiding behind a screen anymore. You're actually being vulnerable. Our church will call it hot, humble, open, and transparent, right?
Mhm.
So that's the only way to live in life, is to really just put ourselves out there and share all our good, bad, and ugly. Because how do you find healing? How do you get to that next stage of life if we don't, right?
Yes, yes, I
So,
love that. Yeah, just be open and vulnerable and just be yourself. People are going to judge you anyway. You might as well be yourself.
right? Yeah, they will.
Yes. You can look perfect, have the perfect body, the perfect husband, the perfect kids. They're gonna find something wrong with you,
Yeah.
or they're just gonna hate you because you're perfect.
And you know what? So I've God's had to work on that in me too, because I used to like judge the book by the cover, right? My sister-in-law is gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous. And if you were to look at her from the outside, you would think that she's got her life all together. And it's definitely gotten a lot better for her by over the years. But when I actually got over myself and my own like um insecurity of being in the same room with her, because she's the girl that's got her hair is always perfect, her makeup's always perfect, and her lashes and she's always smiling. And I'm like, how can you be so happy all the time? Is that not real? So I used to have all these ideas running through my head, and she intimidated me until I had an opportunity to have a deeper in-depth conversation with her. And she had just the same insecurities and struggles as I did. And it humbled me to realize, like, just because you can see somebody that looks perfect in your viewpoint does not mean that it's perfect in theirs. So that's a good
Exactly.
lesson to learn.
Yeah, you'd be surprised by, like you said, what they're struggling with.
So true.
Yeah, what they're going through in their
All
life.
of
And
our
sometimes
family dynamic. Our little cocktail of trauma and junk.
yeah, sometimes it's those people who you perceive as perfect, they're looking at you and then they think you're perfect. It's interesting.
So true. Just like we talked last time, we're like, oh, I'm like, I love curly hair. You're like, oh no, I love straight hair. Remember we were having that conversation last time. So it's so true. We want what we don't know. Like, and you don't know what you don't know until you know.
I love that, Stacey. Yeah, so what I basically wanted to tell people is like family is not always blood related. Sometimes those who are in your blood can at times I don't like the word enemy. I don't know if you have a better word for it, but just because you're blood doesn't mean they're family.
Right.
So, okay.
Yeah.
And ways that I started to personally attract my family is, so I took a mind, body, soul like approach. So body, of course, you gotta eat healthy, no processed foods, or minimize your processed foods, minimize that sugar, those vegetable oils, those omega-6s, just try to focus on whole unprocessed food from God. Basically, if it's from God, most likely it's gonna be good. So
Yeah.
I like that, yeah. They
Good.
call it what? I think y'all have like the Daniel fast or something like that.
The Daniel plan. We
Yeah,
did that study last year. It was so good. Or beginning of this
really?
year. Yeah, it was so good.
Wow. So yeah, just focus on whole unprocessed foods that come from like the earth and not these Franken foods. And exercise, move. Okay, you don't have to do like boot camps. You don't have to do any of that if you do not like it. Like focus on what you like. Like if you like to dance, dance. If you like strength training, strength train. If you want to just go outside and take a walk or swim or whatever you want. It doesn't have to be like,
Mm,
you know, rigid or strict. You do what you want, because if you do what you want, you're going to stick to it.
that's right.
And the next one is supplements. But before I say that, I want to say, some supplements can interact with medication, and make sure to consult with your doctor before you start taking any supplements.
Right.
Yes. So there's some really good supplements, like a good multivitamin mineral supplement. For a woman, I know for a lot of us, we can have like iron deficiency. We can have
Mhm.
anemia. So like a good iron supplement, especially if you're still getting your cycle.
Mhm.
I heard women in menopause don't really have that issue. I heard they have the opposite issue where they can have too much blood and they have to like donate blood.
Or they
That's,
have the calcium buildups and different things
yes,
like that, right? Yeah.
yes,
Mhm.
yes, it's fascinating. Um, so physically, you can start doing that. And I want to talk about like the law of attraction. Basically, to summarize it, like attracts like. So
Mhm.
just think about it. Like if you're looking at your current circle of people and you think this is just not my tribe, or your relationship, this is just not the person I'm meant to be with, take a look at yourself first.
Mhm.
Because what you attract is usually a mirror of what you are. So like attracts like. So if you're a positive person, you'll attract positive people, negativity, negative people.
That's
So
right.
just work on that and work on improving yourself as a person. So that's physically. Okay, so let's go to mentally. We talked about therapy, we talked about coaching earlier, we talked about journaling, the self-help books. Some other ones are called The Dance of Anger. That's a book I would recommend. And Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. So if you're scared, do it.
Yes. The
Do it.
dance of anger. What is that?
That is a book on, I've read a little bit of it. So it's like, I think it's kind of like a relationship book, but like if you're too angry, then you attract like that angry person, and it just gives you tools on like letting go and forgiving and all of that. So like we talked
Oh,
about earlier.
so good. I'll have to look that up. That sounds
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah. So a lot of people can benefit from that book. And so those are some books that I would recommend. And also visualize what kind of person you want to be. So let's say your current situation is you're not happy with who you are, you don't have self-esteem, you don't have self-confidence, you're not happy with the way you look. Okay, visualize. How do you want to look like? How do you want to act like? How do you want to talk like? And
Mm-hmm.
start visualizing it and start acting like it, because the more you start acting like it, the more you start to believe it, and the more you'll start to become that person.
Yeah. What we think about, we bring about, right?
Exactly. I love
Yeah,
that.
I love it.
Exactly. And we also talked about the journaling, but also writing letters to your family members. You
Hmm.
can write letters and just express how angry you are at them, like what they did to you, how much they hurt you. And you can write, like I said, you can write whatever you want because it's only you and the paper, and write everything down. And then, like we discussed, burn it, rip it up, bury it in the ground, do whatever you need to do.
Definitely, if don't definitely check in with yourself before you send it to that person. So yeah, you definitely check in with yourself, make sure that
Yes,
it's therapeutic on both sides.
yes, yeah. Because some people, you're right, maybe they do want to send it.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe they do want to send it. And some people, maybe they just don't want to send it. They just want to write it and just get rid of it. So you're
Mhm.
right, whatever they decide to do.
That's right. So good.
Yeah, yes. And podcast, listen to some podcasts. So my
Yes.
favorite podcast personally, I don't know if you've heard of Sean Stevenson. Have you heard of Sean Stevenson, Stacey?
Oh, and I'm
Oh,
a
he's
podcast
amazing.
junkie.
He's amazing. You would love him. You would love
Dawn
him.
Stevenson,
Sean Stevenson. So his podcast is called The Model Health Show.
the model
Health Show.
health show.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. His is really good because he addresses the whole mind, body, and spirit. And he even has some books out on eating and sleeping. They're called Eat Smarter and Sleep Smarter. They're really good.
So good.
Yes. And so I like that one. I like The School of Greatness by Lewis Howes. Have you heard of him?
Yes. Yep.
Awesome.
So
I
good.
love him.
Yes.
And Jay Shetty, have you heard of him?
Yep. I actually follow, he does all these really awesome videos and I follow all of his stuff. He is like, he just knows how to bring real life issues to the light. And I love it. I love his creative flair. I've actually, in all hearts of hearts, I'm like, I should reach out to him and see if he'll actually screenplay my life.
Hey, you never
I've
know.
thought of it. I've thought of it. So I'm like, I've got a script for you, Jay. Like,
Why don't you?
oh well, everything has a season, right? So right now I got too much on my plate, but one day
That'd be
maybe.
awesome. Or Darman. Have you heard of Darman?
Yes, he's also one of my very favorites. Yes.
Maybe he could do it if Jay Shetty will do it.
So good. I love all of that stuff. Eat it
Yeah,
up.
so those are some tips. And then I'm going to get into like spirituality a little bit. So we talked about, how Stacy turned to Christ and how Christ played a role in her life and how she was able to forgive, which that was basically a lot of my spirituality points, but some additional ones um, for other people would be like meditating or praying. Like
Mhm.
whatever belief system that you are, go to that place of worship. If you're a Jew, go to a synagogue. If you're a Muslim, go to the mosque, or Christians, go to the church. Usually when people are congregating together, that can heal, depending on, of course, the
Community.
congregation. Um, you can join some online support groups. You can
Like
do
right
some
here inside the Beautiful You coaching app.
that too. See, there you go. Because
Yeah.
y'all got like prayer circle, right? Do you have a prayer circle?
We do Bible studies, and so that there's that inner circle that connects and supports one another. So I call them soul sisters, because we can lift each other up and share some of our struggles, and we can pray for each other, and it does help, right? Like, if just knowing that you have a safe place that you can share your stuff. And not all churches are designed the same way. So I've been going to church for 20 years, and sometimes I can feel the most invisible and most yeah, I can feel very invisible in a church. And maybe that's just, the season of life that I was in at that time, but definitely, um don't you got to find what works for you. Like Aliyah says, like and to me, praying and meditating, some people, like even in the church, have a hard time with the word meditating. Well, meditating is just a form of prayer, right? So when we just, it depending on what you're meditating on, like you can, there's people that meditate on some really weird stuff out there, and that whatever floats your boat. But for me, like, it's like, okay, God, what do you got for me? Like, and I get just real, like I get in the wrestling ring, like meditations can get ugly in my house. So it's different for everybody. You got to find what works for you. So thank you for sharing that. That's awesome.
Yeah.
What else do
And
we
I
got?
like
What
what you
else you
said
got in your
about the
toolbox?
meditation. Meditation literally is a form of prayer. So
Absolutely.
yeah, I love that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because some religious people tend to get really funny about it because you think
They
it's like
do.
this new age concept, but it really isn't.
And some things have been like really pushed to,
Mhm.
the manifestations of, you want $1 million, just sit on your couch and put your feet up and just think about it, and it's going to show up. If you just think about it hard enough, it'll just, no. God does not help those that don't help themselves. Like you got to put in the work, right? Nothing in life is free. Like, I don't know what household you got raised up in, but I know for a fact that nothing in life is free. It takes work. So
It does take work. You're absolutely right. Yeah, because some of those manifesting people are like, you're right. You don't just sit there on your butt and just wish for things. You got to work.
no, I actually had a conversation once with somebody. They're like, I was trying to relate, uh, challenge the manifestation concept. And so all day long, I didn't have any money on me, but all day, all I could think about was a Coke, like a Coca-Cola. And, and then, and then it just happened. Someone just dropped a Coca-Cola on my desk. I'm like, oh, well, that's pretty cool that someone just decided to give you a pop that you were probably just like, I want a Coke. I want a Coke. I want a Coke. Someone's like, shut her up and give her a Coke. To each his own, right? To each his own. Everybody's got what works for them, and they will hang on to whatever is going to fuel them for the day. And that's what it is. Like, some people will look, when I loved how you're talking about that, the healthy foods, and really trying to really balance that out, because some people will turn to the junk foods, which ends up spiraling us. It's fuel to some degree, but it's like putting unleaded gas in your premium vehicle. It's going to drain you, and you'll be in worse shape, like a seized engine, before you know it, right? So we do have to be cautious in the decision-making process of our health journey. And there's lots of layers and levels to it. So it's not like we can decide, all right, this is my year, and we are coming into a new year, which is really exciting. This is my year. And I'm going to be in the best shape of my life, and my relationships are going to be amazing. And we can lay out all those things, but there's steps to achieve all of those things. And so we can have this umbrella idea or picture of how we want our lives to look. And I loved how you say, like, who we surround ourselves around as well feeds into who we want to become as an individual. Right. So if you're around a bunch of negative Nellies and gossipers and I call them chicken cluckers, so, where they get around. Right. So, but if we're around those people, we're going to be like those people. And if you don't want to be like that, then you do have to make better choices when it comes to who you bring into your circle. And I love how you said, Aliyah, that we get to choose our own family. Because I was orphaned at a tender age of 19, I know what it's like to, just you grab a hold of your own family. Like, there's aunts and uncles that I have labeled as aunts and uncles. And even in my workplace today, I have a lady that's been with me in our accounting firm. She's been with us probably 13 years, and I call her Mama Sue. Like, she's a mama. I go to her when I'm struggling, and I go to her when I need that, ass whooping, because I know she'll give it to me straight. But like, it's one of those things that you don't need to always be connected to your bloodline, even though they're your bloodline. Some of them could be the most toxic in your life journey. So you can fill the gap in any which way you want. It's your life, right? So yeah.
Yeah. It is your life, and yeah, your family can literally be unlimited. And I do believe that if you just start working on yourself as a person, like holistically through all of these approaches and what you mentioned too, you can start attracting much better people in your life.
That's
And
right.
it's just
So
it's
true.
beautiful once you start having like that actual family, the support system that you've been craving. Oh my gosh. It just
So
it's
good.
beautiful.
So good.
Yeah.
And it's like you we talked about earlier, it's iron sharpens iron. We learn from one another, we can encourage each other, in any relationship. When one is weak, the other strong, and vice versa. So we're all going to have moments of weakness, and when we have those good supportive people in our circle, we can lean on them, and they can help encourage us and inspire us to keep to pick up our pieces and keep moving forward, right? And then it's reciprocated. So when we're in a good space and our friend is hurting, they can lean on us. And it's one of those things that it's the community that you get to create, that community that's surrounding who's in your circle of influence. And how are you feeding your spirit with books and meditations and prayer and journaling and all of the things that are so vital to our healing, especially if you've been one of the 80% in statistics when it comes to these 5 different family dynamics, which, well, we all know like it can be paralyzing if we allow it to be. But if you do have a choice, and I've always said this, a lot of people ask me, how did you um how did you find this level of healing? And I said, you have 2 choices, and we all have 2 choices in life when it comes to traumatic experiences. You can be a victim of your circumstance, or you can be victorious of your circumstance. um, and I refused to be a victim. I watched my mom with that victim mentality destroy her life, literally. And so I just refused. I refused to fall. I'm not going to say that I have never fallen into that space, because I've definitely fallen into that space, because I'm human, let's be real. But once I catch myself falling into that little pit of like pity, poor me syndrome, victim mentality, I have to give my head a shake, fluff out my tail feathers, and get the heck out of there. Right? Because it's not going to serve me. I have to be like, no, I can rise above this. And so can each and every single one of you. Doesn't matter what you're facing. And some of it can be very catastrophic right now. I know some women in this space have lost some really close loved ones this past year that I can't even imagine. And it's just a really trying time for people financially, and losing their jobs and different things like that that are going on. And just there's so much conflict within the family, so much right now that I don't know if it's ever been this confrontational, because of everything that's going on in the world. Everybody has their own viewpoints, and the division that's transpiring is heart-wrenching. And so right now you do need to choose who's going to be in your circle of influence, so that you can have that support network to help you get through those conflicts, whatever might be arising for you. So,
Right, especially these days with everything that's going on,
oh,
like you mentioned,
so
it's
much
yeah, it's a lot.
heavy.
It
Mhm.
is, but there's always hope, like you said. There's always hope.
Always, always. Glass half full, ladies. Let's do it.
Glass half full. I love that. Glass half full. Yes.
Yes. Well, Aliyah, this has been absolutely amazing. I'm sorry for hijacking half of your conversations today, but it just really did, talking about family dynamics and how you started off with all the different dynamics of the substance abuse, the conflict-driven families, the violent families, the authoritarian families, and the emotional detached families. Any of that resonates with any of our viewers today, and you want to deep dive into any of these specific journeys of healing from these traumatic experiences, Aliyah will be more than happy to take a call from you, or connect with you in any which way, shape, or form. And if anybody here in the community wants to reach out to you, Miss Aliyah, how would they go about doing that?
Right now you can reach me at my Instagram at Curvaceous Fit and Fabulous. That is my Instagram. Or right now on my Facebook at Aliyah, my first name Aliyah, last name Hamad, Hammad. I am, like I said, revamping everything, my website, everything. So hopefully I'll have that up by January. That is the goal.
It's such a fresh feeling when you can just like spread some goodness into your socials. Like I did that last year when we launched the app and I was like, I love this. I'm never leaving. But now I've got this stirring in my heart of something new that's coming down the pipe. And so I'm like, okay, God, like, so there'll be a little bit editing, not a whole revamp, but some editing coming up the pipe for me too. So it's good. It is so good. So quickly, just out of curiosity, what is your biggest vision for 2022?
My biggest vision, that's a good question. Like in terms of coaching or like anything?
Just in whatever area that comes to your heart first. So what are you looking to achieve, accomplish, overcome, see more of, whatever is stirring in your heart for 2022?
That's a good question. I think it's a combination of things for me. Like in terms of my business, to really just take it, like to reach a lot more people. Like I'm grateful that I've reached the people that I have, but I really want to take it just to that next level. Like I
Mhm.
said, I'm revamping my whole like business, and I'm gonna have the website and everything by January. That is the goal by
So
January.
much fun.
Yeah, so that's that. And in terms of like just me, I want to get in better shape. I want to like, especially the stretching, like I've gotten stiff.
Oh,
Oh
because
my
we sit
goodness.
all the time, right? We're always in front of our computers.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah.
my goal, is like to have more mobility, to more like, yeah, flexibility, because man.
I don't know. I'm sure you can probably relate because sometimes we get into a project and we're just like, it's so focused. And you're like, I think I should get up and move. And you get up to move and your knees are locked and you can't straighten your legs. You're like, this was not a good stretch, Stacy. This is like, you need to set a timer for yourself. It's so important. Stretching is so good. But yeah.
And face yoga, like I want to be able to do more of my face yoga. Have you heard of
Oh,
face yoga?
face yoga?
Yes, you do something like that to like strengthen the muscles of your face.
Interesting. I'm glad I can make you laugh.
Oh, Lord, I'm about to tear up because I'm laughing so hard. Oh my goodness. But yeah, those are some of the goals, and just work a little bit more on my mental health and just keep praying. That's pretty much it.
That's awesome. That's going to be a great year.
What about you?
For me, I have this stirring in my heart to really help coaches get their message out and serve a lot of women that are hurting at the same time. So just in this community alone, just being able to offer this platform and this space for coaches like yourself to come and be a spotlight and share your expertise and your story to encourage and inspire, it means the world to me. And I know that the community is really getting a lot of value and tidbits and nuggets to help serve them in their journey of life. And so the more we can do that as collectives, I think that, because it takes a village, right? We need to come together and support one another. And I have a heart for small business in general, because I've been in it for so many years, but I especially have a heart for coaches because we just got one hat, but we have to wear 1,000, like we're trained to be coaches, but then we have to learn how to be social media gurus and blog post people and web designers and graphic designers and all the things. And they're just like, when does it ever tap out? Like, I just want to coach. Right. So I
True.
have a heart for those coaches that are just in the struggle of doing all the things. And so within the community, I love being able to take some of the edge off while they come in and they share with this space, but to also provide lots of tools and resources for the members to really get what they need for their journey, whatever path that they're on, because there's so many different facets to our life, right? So
It's beautiful what you're doing for the community, for the woman, and for the coaches. And I
Oh,
really just want to thank you. I'm so grateful that you found me. Actually, you found me. And yeah, right? You found me.
yeah,
I think.
I,
Yeah,
I
I
plucked
am
you
so
out.
grateful because you become like a friend to me. You become like a
Oh,
sister to me. You become like a mentor to me. Like I'm really, really just, I'm trying not to cry. Oh my gosh. Just,
oh.
I'm sorry.
It's okay. My heart's so full. Thank you, Aliyah. You're so precious. I love your energy and your smile lights up any space that you're in. So don't ever stop smiling. It's gorgeous. I love it.
Oh, let's Stacey, I love you. My sister from another mister.
Aw, yeah, that's right. Again, reach out to Aliyah. Social media is Instagram, Curvilicious,
Curvaceous, fit, and fabulous.
Curvaceous, Fit and
Fits and
Fabulous.
fabulous.
And Aliyah, yeah, Hamad?
Hamad.
Hamad.
My Yasmin is my middle name. It's Aliyah Hamad on Facebook, and
Okay.
I'll be getting that website soon. I promise y'all.
Yes, and I will put some links. And again, if you haven't seen her story, go to Your Story Matters and check out her story because it will move you. And she's been through the thick of it. And so, and for her to be sitting here sharing what she's sharing today with this vibrant smile and laughter and joy, you know that she has found some levels of healing that you just wouldn't get. You wouldn't get this lightness about you if you didn't go through that healing journey. So I celebrate you and all
Oh, I
that you
celebrate you too. Thank you,
overcome.
Stacy.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Darlin. I do appreciate you taking this time with me today. And even with all our little technical hiccups, we still managed to get through it. So thank you.